Oh man, depending on how this one does, this could be our last top 10 of this particular subject. We'll see how we do. Coming up though, we're counting down the top 10 songs from an unbelievable year. Some of the biggest rock songs ever, but they were never actually hits. And truly, most of these are better than all the hit singles of that year. We've got some crazy backstories on this one, including how a rock juggernaut's new album was shredded in a nasty hit piece for a magazine. It called the band sexist, amongst other things. And then their big single from the album flopped at number 86. But get this, decades later, it became the biggest song from that year with almost 5 billion streams. Or how about an album cut from one of the best debut albums of the 70s that soundtracked the most rewinded movie scene of the 80s? In fact, it was so rewinded, it broke a record amount of VCRs. Find out the song and the scene next. We also have an album opener that was never even released as a single, but it's made its band $1 million a year for the last 16 years straight because of a cable clip show. And last but not least, how a temporary roadie was promoted to lead singer and became one of the greatest rock singers ever. Stories are next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember playing the Intellivision back in the day, you're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now to be a part of our Music History Daily. Click the notification bell and the button so you know when our stuff comes out. All right, so we're on our third episode into our new yearly countdown show. The one about the songs that didn't break into the top 40 in the Billboard Hot 100, but they're some of the biggest songs ever. What do you think so far? This time around, we're setting our sights on the year 1978. And of course, the Bee Gees were churning out Saturday Night Fever hits like Staying Alive and Night Fever. Players' Baby Come Back, that went to number 1. And the Commodores gave us not once, not twice, but 3 times a lady.
3 times a lady.
But, you know, if you dig a little deeper into the charts and beyond, I think you'll see that some of the year's best songs didn't make the chart. As a reminder, the criteria I'm using for each of these songs is the year that the album that it was on was released. All right, let's get into it. Coming in at number 10, I got Boston with a seriously underrated single from their sophomore album, Don't Look Back. Song? Feeling Satisfied. So after Boston's 1976 earth-shaking debut, they pretty much knocked the industry back on its heels. Clock started ticking though. Boston's label CBS Epic wanted to capture lightning in a bottle again and fast. The follow-up, Don't Look Back, arrived in the summer of '78, and it wasted no time climbing up the charts. But behind the curtain, the pressure, it was intense. Epic pushed hard for the 1978 release date. Of course, less than 2 years after the first LP came out. Now, for some bands, that would be no problem, but for Tom Scholz and his perfectionist methods, it was a huge problem. Tom Scholz didn't make records in chrome and glass studios. He disappeared into a basement lab and meticulously built songs like Invention. He wanted time to perfect his music and do it the right way, but the label, they wanted the delivery date. And soon it was an endless loop of phone calls. You know, how many songs were done? Scholz, by his own account, had barely 30 minutes of music, 30 minutes that he felt was even ready to show. But that was enough for Epic. Despite his protests, the company took the tracks on hand and released it as is. The final runtime was less than 34 minutes. The album, which produced 3 singles, there was the title track, Don't Look Back. As of course, the most successful went to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. The second single was A Man I'll Never Be. That made it to number 31. And then there was Feeling Satisfied. And I don't know what happened here because it reached number 46 on the Hot 100. Should have been a lot bigger. This is a huge song. Tom Scholz has explained that Feeling Satisfied was written late in the Don't Look Back sessions, essentially as the extra song to help shore up an already short album. Said Tom Scholz about it, the record was only 29 minutes at that point. It had to be the shortest album that was released in 1978. It's almost an EP. It needed another song. So to get it over the half-hour mark before Epic took it off his hands, he composed Feeling Satisfied. It counterintuitive name considering how angry he was that he was turning over a really incomplete album. Scholes vowed that he would never be rushed again after that. And just to prove his point, it would be 8 years before Boston dropped their next album, Third Stage. That one went to #1 after a lengthy lawsuit that saw Boston beating the big label in a David versus Goliath replay. All right, so at #9, I've got Don't Stop Me Now, the ultimate green light track courtesy of Freddie Mercury and the Boys of Queen.
Stop me now.
Queen dropped their 7th studio album, Jazz, on November 10th, 1978. The double A-side single, Bicycle Race, Fat Bottom Girls, would precede it by a month and go to number 24 on the Billboard Hot 100. Now, hitting the airwaves after that in January of 1979 is the song that is second only to Bohemian Rhapsody in Queen's catalog. That's incredible. Talking about Don't Stop Me Now. If you look on Spotify and YouTube, you'll see that it's tallied close to 4 billion streams. And then if you count all the other streaming platforms, it's 5 billion. But I tell you, Don't Stop Me Now didn't start out anywhere near that popular. In fact, it hit a brick wall in the Hot 100. It was stopped at number 86. It makes it one of the worst charting songs in Queen's history. That's crazy, right? But back in the day, the media wasn't doing Queen any favors. An example, there was an infamous hit piece that Dave Marsh of Rolling Stone wrote in February '79. He reviewed jazz and he said, Queen hasn't the imagination to play jazz. Queen hasn't the imagination, for that matter, to play rock and roll. It was a brutal piece. In the article, he would refer to Queen as the first truly fascist rock band. He called them arrogant brats, beyond sexist, and concluded the article with calling them creeps. Of course, rock fans never bought into all that. However, it would take some time for Don't Stop Me Now to become what it has. Its resurrection was decades in the making, but with Queen's resurgence in the new millennium, the song has shown up everywhere. It's been placed in Shaun of the Dead, American Dad, Top Gear, Glee, Doctor Who, Game Night, The Umbrella Academy, Sonic the Hedgehog, Young Sheldon. That's just to name a few.
Stop me now. I'm having such a good time.
And with the release of the biopic Bohemian Rhapsody in 2018, Don't Stop Me Now recharted all over the world. It actually went to number 7 on the US Hot Rock and Alternative chart at that time. Although it was a slow starter, Don't Stop Me Now has become unstoppable, leaving its 1978 Hot 100 number 86 ranking in the dust. Coming in at number 8, cue the New York City nightlife, I got Billy Joel with Zanzibar. Of course, a deep cut off 52nd Street. The album kicked out iconic singles like My Life, Big Shot, and Honesty. But one of 52nd Street's best cuts never achieved a single status, Zanzibar. For this one, Joel wrote the music and the title first, before he had any lyrics in mind. And when his producer, Phil Ramone, heard it, he instantly pictured a packed New York City sports bar. And that was enough to get the piano man off. Composed a lyrical collage of late 70s city life, Muhammad Ali on the screen, Yankees, pouring champagne. And he threw in a double entendre about stealing second base with the waitress. The scene is a sports bar, you know, so there are plenty of sports references here. But what truly makes Zanzibar stand out is the narrator's restless lens. He ping-pongs between the barflies around him, the drama on the TV, and taking inventory of his own life. A hand-me-down car, a growing bar tab, and that ever-present guitar. Musically, Billy Joel delivers a pop meets jazz masterwork with a little bit of Steely Dan in there. This groove shuffles forward with that piano engine that he drives so well, and then the room changes temperature when the horns come in. Jazz legend Freddie Hubbard steps to the mic for 2 killer improv solos. Billy Joel later said, "We played a track called Zanzibar where Freddie Hubbard played the trumpet, and we broke into this kind of freeform jazz improvisational solo, and the groove, it was fantastic. We finished doing that recording, we all looked at each other and we said, now we're grown-ups, you know, because only grown-ups play." Well, Zanzibar is one of Joel's most cinematic album cuts, a postcard from a fictional bar that you'd swear is real. You feel like you're right in the middle of the action. Of course, it got a second win on TikTok, making it one of Billy Joel's most streamed and requested songs of the last decade. So I want to take a moment and mention today's sponsor. You know that one guy in the friend group who hit a crazy 5-leg parlay week 1 and wouldn't stop bragging about it the rest of the season? Yeah, that guy could be you with MyBookie. MyBookie makes it insanely easy to get in on the action. College ball, NFL, super contests, and survivor pools, you name it. All the spreads, player props, and in-game lines you could want all under one roof. And if you're new to MyBookie, you get a little extra juice. Check this out. Use our code ROCK, R-O-C-K, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your Bet Back bonus token. No better time to jump in, no better place to play. Football's back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. All right, coming in at the number 7 spot on our countdown, got Devo's biggest moneymaker. And since we're in 1978, you already know it can't be Whip It. Now, it's from their album, question, Are We Not Men? Answer, we are Devo. It's Uncontrollable Urge. So how did Uncontrollable Urge become Devo's biggest cash cow, even bigger than Whip It or their entire catalog combined? Well, it wasn't big on the pop charts. It wasn't even released as a single. It would be decades before it even made its mark. The story starts in 2011 when Uncontrollable Urge became the theme song for MTV's long-running series Ridiculousness. Talked about this a few months ago. It was featuring Rob Dyrdek, and the show features the Internet Fells with Dyrdek and his panelists providing the commentary. But here's the thing. The Comedy Clips show has continued for 40 seasons. With roughly 1,500 episodes, that's a massive number of intros paying out royalties. Adding to that, MTV has essentially become the Ridiculousness channel, running the show around the clock. Every time that theme rolls, Devo gets paid. According to Rolling Stone, frontman Mark Mothersbaugh said that he himself, just he, makes about $1 million a year from Uncontrollable Urge. So they make more than that. Over $1 million+ annually since 2011. Now that doesn't make Uncontrollable Urge one of the highest grossing songs ever, but it definitely makes it one of the most surprising earners in rock history because it was never a hit. I doubt even Devo could have imagined back in 1978 that this would be their most lucrative song. Mothersbaugh himself summed it up best. He said, "This was the very first song off our first album. MTV stopped playing us, but we came to the other side of the circle. But it's a nice ironic twist because this was one of the songs we never even made a music video for, and now it's maybe the most played song ever on MTV." All right, so we've made it to number 6, and it's a band that finally found their groove after going through many changes. I'm talking about Journey with Wheel in the Sky from their 70s classic album, Infinity. Ooh, the wheel in the sky keeps on turning. By summer 1977, Journey was 3 albums into their young career. All 3 of these albums, though, had underperformed. But you know, the reasons weren't mysterious at all. I mean, early Journey, it was good, but it was after Santana-style fusion. This downplayed the need for a lead vocalist. In response, the band's label Columbia pushed for a frontman and tighter radio-ready songs. In June of 1977, Journey hired Californian Robert Fleischman. He began writing new material, most notably Wheel in the Sky. He also hit the road with Journey opening for ELP there. But the band's manager, Herbie Herbert, he had someone else in mind entirely. Former Alien Project singer, a young kid named Steve Perry. Herbie Herbert knew Steve Perry would be perfect for Journey. She said, "I want you to understand." But, Journey already had a singer. Herbie knew Steve Perry would take the band to the promised land, so he was trying to figure out how to get rid of Robert Fleischman. So get this, Herbie had Steve Perry go undercover as part of the band's road crew. He told Steve Perry to lay low until Herbert could figure out how to get rid of the singer. So it was Steve Perry, the roadie, for a little bit. And then Perry was promoted from roadie to singer, and he didn't disappoint. I can't take this very much longer. 6 multi-platinum albums later, Steve Perry is recognized as one of the greatest rock voices of all time, certainly my favorite rock singer ever. Steve Perry's incredible range, his writing chops, and his poise turned Journey into a revelation. Of course, Wheel in the Sky tells the transition story. Actually, Robert Flashman had penned the lyrics using a poem by Ross Valerie's wife called Wheels in My Mind. And that was the source material. Meanwhile, Neil Schon worked out the melody between gigs. Steve Perry added his vocals when he came aboard, and Wheel in the Sky landed on their fourth album, Infinity. It was released as the lead single, Journey's first single with Steve Perry on the mic. However, listeners didn't catch on right away. Wheel in the Sky, it peaked at number 57, but the song's popularity, of course, would grow over time. Here's what Neil Schon told me about it.
It probably was the third year of us touring, and we're getting ready to make a big change. You know, we had done Journey, our first record, which was like, you know, the Dead on steroids in San Francisco.
Yeah.
We were known as that. And then we did Look Into the Future, our second record. And then we did our third record that was Next. And progressively on CBS at the time, we sold less and less records. We sold more and more tickets live, and we sold less and less records. And so a label at that point was going, you know, we're going to drop you. We want you to, you know, change your direction. You need to give us something that we can get on AM radio so that we can sell some records. Otherwise, you're going to be dropped.
All right, coming in at the number 5 spot at the halfway mark, I got to go with a little bit of punk here. I Want to Be Sedated from the Ramones, from their fourth album, Road to Ruin. The seed for Sedated actually came from Christmas of 77 when the band was marooned in a London hotel room. So it turns out the entire city was shut down for the holidays, and they were bored out of their minds. Talking Joey and Dee Dee Ramone. They actually flipped through American war movies on TV like The Guns of Navarone. They were doing this instead of living it up in London like they dreamed of, but the town was closed down. Add to that the band's 360 days a year road grind and Joey's fresh recovery from a scalding accident, and the song's subtext just clicked. Sedate me before the downtime kills me. I Want to Be Sedated never touched the Hot 100 when it dropped, even as the band set out to make their most accessible record yet. Pop radio in 1978 had little appetite for punk, and they simply passed. That was the climate. Top 40 programmers wanted polish, not pogo. The long game, though, belongs to the song. A decade later, when MTV commissioned a video to promote the compilation Ramones Mania, director Bill Fishman delivered an inspired in-joke. In the video, the band sits stone-faced at a diner table while pure chaos blurs by in fast motion. A literal in-action video. It became the clip people couldn't stop watching, the gateway for a new generation, and the reason Sedated became omnipresent without a Hot 100 pedigree. From there, its influence, it only widened. And for every pop-punk band that followed, like Green Day, The Offspring, Blink-182, I mean, you can hear Sedated as a blueprint for sure. Coming in at the number 4 spot, from his 4th studio album, Darkness on the Edge of Town, I've got Bruce Springsteen and Badlands. Crafted over 11 months, Darkness on the Edge of Town was a deliberate pivot for Bruce, who had just broken through with Born to Run. But then he couldn't release anything for 3 long years as he was locked in a legal battle with his former manager. I mean, it got so bad, Springsteen actually broke down and sobbed at the trial. He didn't know if he'd ever be able to release music again or if he'd lose the rights to everything he created. Now, when the injunction finally lifted, he chose a lean working class sound and gave away future hits, Because of the Night and Fire. Of course, Patti Smith recorded Because of the Night and it reached number 13 on the Hot 100, her big hit. Fire went to the Pointer Sisters and rose to number 2. Fire. His own singles for the album, they were less successful. Prove It All Night went to number 33 and Badlands stalled at number 42. But for Bruce, the album's meaning mattered more than any of the singles. Cinema seeped into the writing. I mean, Badlands, of course, took its title from Terrence Malick's 1973 film. Although at the time Bruce hadn't seen it, Rather, he took the title from its movie poster after seeing it in the theater lobby. As Bruce told Rolling Stone decades later, he would say, "Badlands was a great title, but it would be easy to blow it. So I kept writing until I had a song that I felt deserved that title." Very cool. That phrase framed a character study of a late 20s striver, down on his luck, frustrated, but clinging to love, hope, and faith. Truly, Darkness on the Edge of Town is one of my 10 favorite albums ever. It's so great. And as for the music, Bruce has been charmingly candid about the source spark for Badlands, of its kinship to The Animals' Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood.
Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
He admitted, and I quote, "That's the one I was ripping off. I flipped it from minor to major, and it's basically the same riff. That's how it's done, kids." Although Badlands missed the top 40, it has since become one of the Boss's signature anthems with the perfect lyrics for the ones who had a notion deep inside that it ain't no sin to be glad you're alive. I want to find one face that ain't looking through me. I want to find one place. I want to spit in the face of these Badlands. All right, heading into the number 3 spot, I've got a song that you're all going to be shocked was not a hit. Seriously, this is crazy. Cheap Trick, Surrender. Now, although Surrender landed on 1970's Heaven Tonight, Cheap Trick had already been playing it for years. Drummer Bunny Carlos remembered rehearsing it back in 1975 in the basement of Rick Nielsen's father's music shop. Nielsen said that they almost cut it for the debut after tracking around 26 songs, but it didn't make the final lineup. It missed In Color as well, the second album. So Rick wrote it late one night at home. He was strumming an unplugged electric guitar when inspiration just struck. The melody in the opening line. Rick Nielsen shaped the lyric like a rock nursery rhyme, is what he said, writing from the headspace of his 14-year-old self. So Rick Nielsen would say, "I used to hear my friends saying they thought their parents were really strange. The first thing I got was the opening of the chorus. Mommy's all right, daddy's all right. It just rolled off the tongue at one sitting." Mommy's all right, daddy's all right. They just say my name. Those opening lines, "Mother told me, yes, she told me, I'd meet girls like you." That's advice to the lovelorn, and obviously inspired by the old Shirelles hit, "Mama Said There'd Be Days Like This."
Mama said there'll be days like this, there'll be days like this, Mama.
It's a good way to start a song, is what he'd say. Humor and irony, sharpen the generational jab, and then flip the script when the kids catch their folks rolling numbers on the couch to Kiss records. His Kiss records, their sons. He imagined that so that he could bring it up to date, the song. Suddenly, the clueless adults aren't so clueless, just human and a little wild themselves. Rick has said that the trick was putting himself back in that adolescent mindset. And that's why the song still sticks. Musically, Surrender, it's a power pop. Classic. With razor-edge guitars and stacked harmonies all together. But even with that punch, the single fell short of hit status. It only made it to number 62. However, over time on radio, it grew into a staple and won over listeners, making it one of Cheap Trick's signature tracks. It also got a shout out in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which gave it even more exposure. But just seem a little bit weird, surrender. And, speaking of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, check out our next song on the countdown. We've made it to number 2, and for this one, I've got one of the Cars' best deep cuts from any of their albums. Any year. It's Moving in Stereo from their debut. When the Cars cut their self-titled 1978 debut, one of the most perfect ever, not quite as perfect as Boston's, but close. The band couldn't have foreseen Moving in Stereo becoming a defining cultural moment. But man, was it ever. Stereo was an experimental, moody track co-written by Rick Ocasek and keyboardist Greg Hawkes, with bassist Benjamin Orr on lead vocals here. It was never issued as a single in the US, but it was the B-side to My Best Friend's Girl in the UK, so there's that. She's my best friend's girl. She's my best. Even so, Moving in Stereo began accumulating airplay on FM, the album-oriented rock stations. But what really made it famous was this infamous poolside placement in Cameron Crowe's Fast Times at Ridgemont High in 1982. Nobody can deny that. So get this. Before all this happened, a 22-year-old Cameron Crowe actually went undercover as a high school student for a year to write his book called Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And none of the students actually caught on. Over the course of a school year, Cameron Crowe infiltrated the student body and he kept careful notes. He actually later joked that everyone probably thought he had a small bladder because he was always running to the bathroom just to write things down. So yeah, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was based on a number of real-life incidents, which poses the question, did the Phoebe Cates poolside fantasy actually happen? Well, you'd probably have to ask Cameron Crowe about that one. But Moving in Stereo became the soundtrack to the most overplayed scene from an 80s movie ever. In fact, there was an urban legend that more VCRs broke in the 1983 to 1984 years, in those 2 years, than at any other time because the rewind function was used so much, and it made Moving in Stereo a #1 hit in our minds for sure. I don't know if that's true. Did you ever hear that urban legend? I heard it growing up all the time in Idaho. I think I had some friends in Utah that heard it as well. But initially, Moving in Stereo wasn't initially slotted for that scene. According to director Amy Heckerling, on a whim, the film's editor Eric Jenkins played the song over the pool scene and he thought it was really good. Amy Heckerling would say, I never really thought much about the song. I mean, I love the Cars, but I wasn't thinking about it, you know what I mean? But then he showed me the bikini scene and I was like, that's amazing. It was too good. And I thought, well, we probably can't have it. But it turns out we could.
You know how cute I always thought you were.
That scene pretty much sealed the deal and ensured that Moving in Stereo would become one of the Cars' most iconic tracks, even if it never charted. I mean, come on. Everybody kind of saw that scene, right? And that song is tattooed to it forever. Before we get into the #1 spot, I want to throw in one honorable mention. It just missed my top 10, talking about The Police Is So Lonely. This one was released in late 78 on their debut album, and it didn't chart here in the US, but it was later reissued in 1980 after Roxanne and Can't Stand Losing You hit and climbed to #6 in the UK, and it was still MIA on the Billboard Hot 100. That said, over time, So Lonely has definitely turned into a cult favorite. All right, we're here, and the #1 song for 1978, I've got Van Halen's Running with the Devil. Before the band signed with Warner Brothers, the tune lived as a rough idea on the Gene Simmons Finance demos. Remember those? And now it was reborn when producer Ted Templeman stepped in and sharpened the edges. Start with that intro. It isn't a keyboard pad or a synth drone. It's a homemade siren. The band literally built an instrument out of car parts that they pulled horns from their own cars, as well as a local junkyard, and they mounted them in a box. They wired the whole thing to batteries with a foot switch and recorded that blast. Templeman then slowed the tape to create that heavy descending moan. 30 seconds in, you already know this record is not messing around. Once the alarm fades, the band locks into the core groove. Michael Anthony plays tight, short bass notes. Alex Van Halen keeps the beat moving with a steady kick with an open hi-hat. Eddie's rhythm tone is crisp, it's crunchy, with wide open chords, and the chorus stacks harmonies against Ross' lead lines. Classic Van Halen, call and response, and the solo is melodic, it's concise, it's otherworldly. Lyrically, Running with the Devil, it's not a satanic anthem at all. Rather, it sketches the grind and thrill of living fast with no safety net. Diamond Dave's ominous declaration, I live my life like there's no tomorrow, throws listeners into a world of reckless abandon.
My life like there's no tomorrow.
It's the voice of a band sleeping on floors and chasing their next gig. The title likely nods to earlier R&B phrasing about running from the devil, but the message here is simple. This is the cost and the rush of the life that we chose and the life we want. Templeman parked Running with the Devil at the top of the album, track 1. I mean, it sets the tone for the supercharged album that follows. Now, as a single, Running with the Devil didn't exactly conquer top 40. Actually peaked at number 84 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1979. But on FM rock and on stage, it was seismic. It was paired with Eruption, and it became rock's most explosive opening. Check out what Michael Anthony told me about this one.
Because Dave used to listen to all the dance music. And so he'd listen to all those, you know, do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. And he would incorporate it in songs, you know. But, you know, he'd pick up little things from these songs, like, you know, at the end of the solo on Running with the Devil, he had that whistle that he picked up, you know. He would pick this stuff up from dance music, dance songs and stuff. It was kind of a cool little, you know, not your typical front man getting up there and just doing the big rock pose and, you know, what a lot of the guys were doing. You know, it was a lot different than what everybody else had going on. A lot of these bands that we were opening up for, I mean, the crowd, these bands, Ted Nugent would open up for him and he wouldn't even give us a sound check. And, you know, you kind of got something going on, you know, hey, turn their PA down half the volume of me and give them a quarter of the lights that you know, they were, a lot of bands weren't, you know, they were like, hey, just give Van Halen the bare minimum. But we used to always say, hey, you can hang one light bulb over the band and frick, that's all we need, baby. We're going to go out there and do our thing. And, you know, we were the nicest guys in the world. We had, you know, no egos or anything for that one half hour to hour or whatever that we would have on stage. That was our stage show. That we were the headliners for that hour.
But to be fair, who the hell would want Van Halen to open for him?
Yeah, I think they were a little scared. Like, I remember one real quick story. We did a show. It was in Oakland, California, called Day on the Green. They used to have it every summer. Foreigner was on it. AC/DC was on it. We were on it. Aerosmith was headlining it. And I remember we were backstage hanging out, you know, having beers and just, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And Aerosmith, they come walking backstage, you know. We're like, oh, they walked right by us like we weren't even there.
And man, have you ever listened to David Lee Roth's vocal-only track? This guy drives me nuts when people say that David Lee Roth is not a good singer. Listen, I like Sammy Hagar. I like both versions of Van Halen. But you know what? Diamond Dave is one of the greatest frontmen ever for sure. But he's got a great voice at his peak he did. Maybe not now because he's older. I mean, we all get older. But dude, that guy, you listen to his vocals only and you're just like, it is a rush. It's so much fun. It's a blast.
I'm only gonna tell you one time.
That's why Diamond Dave is the man. He was the man for those first albums of Van Halen. Anyway, that's the countdown. You like it? Should we keep going? I like this countdown, but man, I've had some comments of people you know, wanting some of the pop stuff, whatever. Let me know below if you want to see this. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Let's share memories below. Let's talk about these songs. Let's have a great run with it. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.